Hello, everyone. This is Gary Carpenter with Prepare for College, and that's prepare the number 4 college.com. Again, this is going to be a two-part podcast. The first part is going to be talking about assets on the FAFSA form. Next week, we're going to be talking about assets on the CSS profile. Now, this is a pretty complicated area. We've often said that the FAFSA form is relatively easy to complete because a lot of it is generated from information from the IRS or your own personal information. But when we get to assets, this is an area each individual has its different situation, and you have to look at that individual situation as to how you prepare the FAFSA form and how you proceed from there. Today we have Chuck Moore. Al and myself are going to be coming back and forth with questions and positions. So again, I don't want to take up too much time. I want to get started. So Chuck, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right, thank you, Gary. Our panel here, we have in certain situations different points of view. But whenever it comes to the time to filling out the FAFSA, many parents are concerned, especially if they have money saved for whatever reason. It could be, emergency reserves. It could be, to buy a new car, things along those lines. They're very concerned about those assets potentially disqualifying the student from receiving financial aid. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about sheltering assets. Now, let's define what sheltering assets mean. Sheltering assets means moving or using your money in a way that makes it either not show up on the FAFSA or count for less on the FAFSA. Now, this can help potentially increase the student's financial aid, possibly for a Pell Grant or whatever, but normally low-income individuals or middle-income individuals do not have a substantial amount of assets that is outside of a pension plan. So the reason we're talking about this is that if the assets are in the parent's name, it's going to be assessed at a 5.65%. If you're going to have assets exposed on the FAFSA, you definitely need the majority of the assets in the parent's name. If it's in the student's name, you're going to be looking at 20%. To give you an example, if you had $1,000 in the student's name, the FAFSA is going to require $200 of that to go towards paying for the cost of college education. Now, if you had the same $1,000 in the parent's name, only $56 is going to be exposed to pay for the cost of a college education. Now, some monies that are not counted on the FAFSA, we've covered this in other webcasts and such, is your home, your retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs, or pension funds, personal assets like cars, furniture, personal stuff like clothing or electronics. But some of the things that are counted is, of course, cash and checking and savings accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, college savings plans like 529 accounts, and investment properties or vacation homes. Those are the things that are there. Now, what can you do?
Let's just add one thing to that, Chuck. That's
okay,
because it's relatively new, and that's the child support. So received, not awarded, received child support is an asset for the parent now as well in the new FAFSA. All the things you mentioned, but let's just add received child support as well.
Okay. Now, what can you do before the FAFSA? One of the things that I normally tell a lot of individuals that have assets that are going to be exposed on the FAFSA is to see whether or not you're going to qualify for free money. Now, you don't want to shift assets here to increase your availability to get student loans. Everybody can get student loans. We're looking at getting free money. So I normally recommend individuals is to run their SAI based off their income only first, and then compare what your SAI is in accordance to the cost of the college. If you're not going to qualify for free money, that's like a Pell Grant, SEOG grant, any type of state grant, and things along those lines, just solely based off of your income, then I wouldn't worry about your assets. I don't care what they are. Now, that's my opinion.
I'll
However,
share mine in a minute.
however, if your assets are throwing you over a limit to where you will not qualify for receiving need-based free money, then yes, possibly sheltering some of your assets would be a good idea. But in the majority of the situations, in my opinion, if you're a high income person or high middle class individual that has a substantial amount of assets, as well as high income, and your student is going to go to a public university or whatever, I wouldn't worry about your assets. You're not going to qualify for need-based asset or anyway. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Al. He's going to give you his opinion, and then I'll come back in and
Well,
I'll give you my rebuttal.
yeah, there's opinions, but there's facts. And all the things that Chuck just said about the 5.645 and the 20%, and the liquid assets that are counted and the assets that are not counted, no discussion whatsoever. Those are all right there in the law. It is not up for discussion. UGMAs, etc., all those things. But to get into the situation of whether you should or should not move money, it is a individual situation. In other words, there are students that have that want to go to college. You know, I had a student once, Chuck and Gary, that said, my guidance counselor said I'm not college material. And I says, why did they say that? He said, well, I have a 2.4 grade point average. I said, all right, well, that's going to be tough for you, but do you want to go to college? He says, yes. I said, all right, well, you're college material. Now we just got to figure out which college. Obviously, you're not going to Harvard, but there is a college out there that you can have the college experience and develop your character and your ability to learn, and et cetera, et cetera. So we found them a college, and it worked out real well. So my point of bringing that little story up is the fact that everybody is different. When Chuck was talking about let's not do this, let's not do that, unless it's this or unless it's that, I don't disagree, but I do believe it is a case by case situation. For instance, that you probably don't know this. I'm going to tell you right now. There's only about 65 colleges in the entire United States that are 100% of need-based colleges. Need, let's just review. Remember, cost of attendance is everything, books, fees, room, board, everything, right? We had that discussion a couple of weeks ago, cost of attendance, minus your SAI or your EFC. This week we're talking about the FAFSA, so just your SAI. And that is going to equal your need. So we got to put some numbers behind this. So 30,000 cost of attendance minus $10,000 SAI equals $20,000 with a demonstrated need. Well, if you're applying to one of those 65 plus colleges that are 100% need-based colleges, then that's going to be one scenario. How about if you're not applying to one of those 65 100% need-based colleges? Okay, let's go deeper still. How about if it's a public as opposed to a private? How about sometimes the colleges that are going to the public colleges don't give any need-based aid, and the private colleges are actually pretty substantial. They're not 100%, but they're pretty good. So again, I got to pick a college. I got to pick whether it's the right place to go for me. And now you're starting to see why a counselor is going to be very helpful in deciding whether you need to move that money or not. From a standpoint of just where Chuck was coming from, do this without your assets and do this with your assets. Let's say it's only about a $5,000 difference. $5,000. That's it. That's a lot, but that's not a lot. But it is a lot because we're talking about 4 years of college. So 5 times 4 is $20,000. Where's the line that you get a little nervous about how much money you're going to spend or not spend? However, wait a minute. Am I going to one of those 100% colleges? Because if you're not, it's not going to work out that right. So, see what I mean? If you're lost listening to me right now, you need a counselor because I'm really not going that deep into it. But at the same time, these are the variables that need to be covered. So, I'm all set with the facts, really all set. Chuck didn't miss a beat. Nailed it, nailed it, nailed it. But from the standpoint of whether I should or shouldn't, then I believe it's based on the college that you're going to go to, based on your grade point average, based on your standardized test scores, based on your SAI, based on all these variables. Oh my goodness, you put all those variables into a hat, and every one of them are important. And so now you need a counselor to kind of wade through that and coach you properly, and not sit there and say you have to apply here, here, and here. No, no, no. We won't take that position. We're going to coach you though, based on this. This will happen. Based on that, that could happen. It's a could be, should be. So that's why one should apply to 6 to 10 colleges, or maybe 10 to 15 colleges in the college process, so to speak. But it's going to wind down to, at the end, it's going to wind down from an affordability standpoint, from an academic standpoint, and from a social standpoint. And those are the three fits that an academic or college trained financial planner will work with to make sure that you're doing the best for your situation. So, no argument on the facts, Chuck, but I think I'll disagree with you whether it should be done until we figure out the rest of the story.
Yes.
Paul Harvey, page 2. Okay, the rest of the story. I date myself. I even say that probably. So,
Gary, what do you have?
I have something really quick, okay? Um, in the real world, you may have an independent educational consultant that helps identify colleges that the student may want to go to. By the time they usually come to me, they've already got a list of colleges of what they want to consider. And I come down and I run the numbers and I say, okay, here's what it's going to be. You know, we sit down and we do the SAI estimate on that. We find out, hey, your income's too high. You're not going to get any aid. Your assets are not going to impact the situation. Now, in other situations where the student has already picked out colleges, their favorites, quite frankly, I have sometimes students, they have 1, 2, 3 colleges at the most that they're really interested in. And then I really have to say, okay, we're going to go right down to the Nicholas and see what it's going to cost you, because they're almost committed to sign on a dotted line. And I want to make sure that they understand what the impact of that is going to be. That in that particular situation, assets may not count at all. In another situation, with another family, assets do count. And we have to get down to the bottom number so we know what they're being exposed to. Because I don't want to see them 3 years down the line or 4 years down the line end up with substantial debt. It's just, it's a deal killer right there. So I'm very sensitive about the assets, but even before that, I see what the income is, as you've said, Chuck, and as you have also said, Al. Sometimes these people, quite often, they get kicked right out of the program because their income's too high. So I'm concentrating on the assets where there is a situation that they may get some additional aid. It's a deal. It's an individual client by client situation. Each one is different. I cannot tell you I have 6 people that have the same situation. If I got 6
Amen.
people, I got 6 different
6
situations.
different stories. Yes. Easy enough.
I'll pass it back to you, Chuck.
Now, you think that we have a disagreement here between all three of us, but we're on the same page here. It is based off an individual situation, what college they select, of whether or not you should shift any assets from the potential of disqualifying yourself for the FAFSA form. Al, you'll probably know this more than myself for sure, but I don't know about Gary. What is the income cutoff for potentially qualifying for a Pell Grant?
60.
60,000.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting here, making under $60,000 and you have $20,000, let's say, into a Uniform Gift to Minors Act in your kid's name, it could potentially disqualify you for a Pell Grant, which is free money. And that's what I concentrate on more than anything else. Now, there are certain things that we'll go over next week whenever we get into the CSS profile of what do you do if you got money into a Uniform Gift to Minors Act or a Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, UGMA and UTMA accounts, and how can you actually shelter those dollars to potentially get free money, not from the federal or the state, but potentially right directly from the colleges themselves. And I'll go over different things in lines of on our next broadcast, is that let's assume you did shift the assets for whatever reason. What is the likelihood of the colleges coming back and calling you up on what is called verification? And this verification, they want to know a list of everything. You got to give it to them and all this stuff. But also, they're going to be reviewing your federal income tax returns. And this is particularly in the cases of private universities. They're going to come back in and have your income taxes possibly 2 years in the rear, like it does on the FAFSA, or they may want a copy of your most recent income tax returns. And then all of a sudden, 2 years ago, they see, $10,000, $15,000 worth of interest, dividends, and capital gains 2 years ago, and now you're not showing any. What are they going to come in and do if they come in and say, what did you do with this money that was generating this capital gains and dividends? And could influence their possibility of not giving you any type of money. But once again, some private universities will do that. Some public universities will not. So I'm in total agreement with Al and Gary here. It's all on an individual standpoint, and definitely, without a doubt, you need some type of professional help to guide you through this process if you've got a substantial amount of assets, because getting rid of assets is no problem.
I can spend that much on a car today.
That's it. There are certain things that you can do to eliminate the assets being put on the CSS profile as well as on the FAFSA form. So I think we're in agreement here.
Let me just add one thing to that real quick, Chuck. We've been saying shifting assets or moving assets, but we're really not explaining. Let's go just one step deeper into that. And what we're talking about here is the practice by licensed financial planners that will move say, 30,000 in a money market into a annuity or a life insurance product or something of this nature, a tax-deferred vehicle. Tax-deferred vehicles are not counted as assets in either one. But in this week, we're talking about the FAFSA, so it's not counted in the FAFSA. The assets that are counted are those liquid assets that are not in tax-deferred vehicles. So therefore, that's the foundation for the strategy to consider moving money if it fits your family situation, which is what Gary was talking about. 6 different clients, 6 different stories. Ain't that the truth? That really is the way it is. Go ahead.
And
Gary.
another thing that I can throw in on this is if you do have the assets, whether or not it's in the student's name or the parent's name or whatever, what is the money that you've got set back? What is it intended to do? Is it intended to be used to pay for college, or is it intended to go ahead and supplement your retirement income, or potential health benefits, things along those lines. Those are the things that you've got to take in consideration before moving any assets.
One quick thing I could jump in here on, and this is just on a particular item where they need guidance, and that is assets in the student's name, like a UTMA or UGMA account. You just can't take the money out of the account. You need to have it taken out for a specific purpose, and that's where you need some professional guidance. Again, because each situation is different. So.
And by the way, on this, and Gary, I'm sure you're going to bring this up, all of this information that we've gone over here on the FAFSA form, as well as the CSS profile, is on our website. To where if you were to go ahead and subscribe to our website, you're going to find out the information of what to do and some of the ideas and techniques of what to do above and beyond what we're covering here on this podcast.
Well, I think that's it for today's podcast. I'm looking forward to next week's because we're going to go a bit deeper. We're going to talk about some specific situations like student assets and things like that. And this is going to be on the CSS profile. So again, join us next week. In the meantime, this podcast is recorded and on our website, and that's prepareforcollege.com. Again, prepare the number 4 college.com. That, along with previous podcasts, are on there. And finally, as I always say, don't keep us a secret. If you have friends, relatives that have children going to college or about to get ready for college, give them the website. I think they'll find some valuable information there, and they can make a decision for themselves as how they want to go. So everyone, thank you for joining us, and we'll speak again next week. Goodbye now.